3.0 is the approval of our agenda. I'll entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Sharon, second by Katie. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. 4.0 are district highlights, which will be a March 28th agenda item. 5.0 are public comments, which will also be on the agenda for March 28th. 6.0 is our consent agenda. All items on the consent agenda are considered routine and non-controversial by the school board and will be approved by a single motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items, but prior to the meeting, board members did have the opportunity to review them and could have requested that any item be moved to an action item. That has not happened this evening, so I will entertain a motion to approve.
So moved. Second.
Ooh, that was quick. So Heather moved and Sharon seconded. I'm sorry. Oh, Pat. Oh, I'm sorry. All I could hear is I know whoever said it over here said it first. So, all right. So moved by Pat and second by Sharon. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. 7.0 are workshop items. 7.1 is showcasing our schools, and we have Jodi Husting from Crestview Elementary, Lela Olson from Valley Crossing, and Kari Lopez from Woodbury Middle School. Welcome all.
Yeah. So good evening, Chairperson Brunnette, Superintendent Jacobus, School Board, and Cabinet members. I'm really excited to be able to present and share some of the wonderful things we're doing at Woodbury Middle School. Our theme for tonight, a few things that I'd like to share, is the work we do with relationships, building relationships and connections with our students, and personalization with instruction. So this is our mission statement. We are a community, we are a community that fosters a culture of excellence in academics and character and global citizenship. Thanks. All right, sorry, I'm turning back and forth. So intentionally building relationships. We just started a program this year called Check and Connect. And Check and Connect came from a survey that we do every year with our students. We survey our students in the fall and the spring. And one of the areas, and you'll see the data later in the PowerPoint, we aim for that 100% for connection with students. So our culture liaison, Carlos Miles, and my EL teacher, E.B. Jansen, and a counselor went to training at the U of M. And when they came back, they shared this wonderful program. And I said, they were all excited, because you know how it is when you go to something, you want to just take everybody on board and move forward. I said, let's go slow to go fast. So let's get 10 teachers to take on mentor and mentees. So we threw out the email, and we had 24 teachers that volunteered. Well, then we didn't want to not have all teachers that are interested to be involved. So we took the 24, and then we worked with our transition notes from our 5th to 6th grade on students. We worked with our counselors for students that were in the building, and we had a rubric, and we were able to provide a teacher with a student, and they will work with those students every week for a half hour for 2 years. And we collect data on their academics, their social, their emotional piece. If we're working with a student, and let's say there's an issue in the building, many times we'll bring their mentor in to help navigate with the student. So we are now into about our 7th month. We've been surveying our parents and our students. All students have continued. No one has dropped out. Parents have been very excited about it, and we feel that it's deepened the connection for some of our students that might not be completely connected into school. So we're excited to see at the end of the year the data, and again next year how it'll continue to roll and hopefully add on more mentors. The second thing, which a lot of schools do, is we do the good news cards. You know, we have them in our office. They're all labeled, grade level, come in, but it's open for paras to send a newsletter, an office coordinator to send. Anybody in the building can send something out to a student for something that they see. We can go ahead and click. With that, the good news letter, we also have, this will be a video. Our 8th grade teachers wanted to take it a step further. It seems like in February is kind of a lull at school. So they asked if they could make connection videos, bypass the cards, and personalize a video out to each 8th grader. So the teacher sat down, and you can imagine 380 8th graders, and they each determined about 30 to 35 students they knew, and they created a video, and I'd like to share one with you tonight. So really listen to the personalization of the video about the student.
Hi, Gavin. As we approach President's Day, I'm often reminded of what it takes to be a great leader. And when I think of these qualities, I see many of those things in you. First of all, every day you come into class, you're ready to learn, you have a smile on your face, and you're ready to just make it be a great day. I also know that we would all be much more happier because you would make it mandatory to watch funny rainbow dancing videos. And I also am secretly hoping that you would make PEDs a real thing. So no longer will I have to tell my students that it's okay for them to use their personal electronic devices, and everybody would know what PEDs means. So these are just a couple of reasons why I would vote for you for president.
Thank you. So after President's Day, all these go out to all the students. And fortunate, we had a lot of snow days this year, so all my teachers were doing at home during that time. So, but the big piece is, you know that they go out, because when you go up into those 8th grade hallways, they're like, did you get your video? Did you get your video? What did they say? What teacher did your video? And you feel that excitement in that lull of winter, a lot of snow, can't get outside. Kids come back with excitement. So the teachers have really enjoyed doing that. Another piece that we do is the teachers do a letter for MCAs, because they really want to help make the connections and decrease the anxiety with tests. So each teacher, they send a general letter, but then they write a personalized note. They want the students to know that they're more than just a test score. So each of the students receive a letter from them in the mail prior to MCA testing. Lastly, I've talked a lot about what teachers do for our students. This year, admin meets every Friday about 2:45, and in the past we've always wrote notes to teachers, but we've never shared. We've never shared as an admin team what's going on in the building. So we come in, and it's Josh and Kelly and myself, and all of us share something they've learned about a staff member in the building, whether it was a custodian, a para, a teacher, but we all listen to the story. Then we write them the personal note, and we all sign it, and we get them a letter. So we do about 5 or 6 of those a week for any of our staff members in our building. Our hope is to hit everybody at least twice this year, because we think it's important to let them know we recognize all the great stuff that they do. Next one. Here's the survey note. I meant to put 2017-18, but these are some of the pieces that we survey the students in the fall and in the spring. And when we saw the 93% of students report an adult cares about them, we want that 100%. When we see the 93% teachers give me help that I need, we want 100%. So we usually take the data from our students to determine some of what we need to put into the building the following year. So this was our 17-18 data, and then this year when we have our 18-19 data, we'll sit down with our SIP team, our admin team, and then we'll determine what else should we be doing to help students be connected into school. So moving on to personalization, there's 3 areas that I want to hit. Pre-assessments and different learning paths, different choices of topics, process and products, and Schoology as a tool to support personalization. My 6th grade teachers start working with students right when they get in the building on executive functioning. So the students take a pre-assessment on executive functioning, and from this pre-assessment, students then will go into Schoology, and they'll pick like 3 areas. Maybe it's time management. They'll pick like time management, maybe it's working memory and flexibility. They get to pick 3 that they would like to work on. So maybe I'm going to work on these 3. This person is going to work on 3 different ones. They're going to go into Schoology, they research the article, and from that assessment, they're going to work on an informational essay. Go ahead and flip to the next one. They're going to create an informational essay, but it's not canned. So a teacher isn't going to get the same type of information from every student. It's going to be based on what their pre-assessment on executive functioning skills is, what they want to learn about, what they might think they need help on, and then they're going to apply it into their essay that they're going to create for language arts. The neat thing with this is the students all take the assessment again in 8th grade. So they'll take this pre-assessment again on executive functioning, and then the 8th grade teachers create a study skills tracker. So for example, on the study skills tracker, they'll have this in their binder. So let's say they're going to do Cornell notes in a classroom. So the students are using Cornell notes. They're going to reflect, did it work for them? Then they're going to reflect what didn't work and what class did it work best in. So they have a study skill tracker that they'll do first try. Then second and third try, they're going to use what works best for what class. So maybe it's those flashcards for a science classroom. Maybe it's Cornell notes for the social studies. But the students are learning about themselves and how they can use in the classroom to be more successful. But it's based on, again, that pre-assessment, the same test they did in 6th grade. So what have they learned on executive skills since they've been in our school? How can they apply it and help them be more successful on tests? Schoology has been wonderful. I have learned, as I've walked through my building, all the wonderful things Schoology has offered. Schoology has allowed students that might take a different test for other students not to see it. They get on their Schoology test, and students don't know who's getting the adapted test or the regular test. It's been a great tool for differentiating, for giving different pathways for assignments. You can provide choice. So if the teachers are teaching a benchmark, they can put 5 different choices that the kids can pick from on Schoology to be able to respond to those benchmarks they learned instead of your typical worksheet. So Schoology has been and continues to be opening a lot of avenues for our teachers. So when you think of personalization in our building, Wednesdays we have professional development. We've been doing this since 2009. So in 2009, on Wednesdays, all teachers in our building will receive professional development in AVID, gifted training, EL, Schoology, best practices for personalization, and from that point, then they have that opportunity to learn and then implement in the classroom and have the coaches available and the resources during that time on Wednesdays. The piece that has become amazing to me is we're at the point now where we're doing personalization for the teachers. So when I walk in a classroom, and let's say it's on EL training, I might have 3 teachers working on this over here, I might have 3 teachers over here, and 3 teachers over here. They're learning on where they're at. So we're even able to personalize PD. It's not coming and dumping. It's really where are you at, what do you need, and providing the resource for the teachers during that time. So because of that, that has allowed us to develop things such as the personalization pieces with the study trackers, creating the stuff into Schoology, because you have the resources at the table. So I've talked about the student essay, creation of more. Oh, and then that's also where we got the President's Day video. That's where they figured out to do that. So I spoke very fast and quick about the things that we're doing at school. I wanted to end with one last piece. I was out walking through my classroom, and I had a teacher that just came back from leave. So she hasn't spent a lot of time on personal choice or personalization in the classroom. And I walked in, and I heard her say, okay, so I'm going to let you guys choose. You can take notes using the Cornell way, or you can do a mind map. And I stopped in my tracks. And I thought, oh my goodness, she's been with me for 5 months, and she's already provided personalization for the students for choice to show them what they know. And I think the most powerful tool when we think of personalization is talking to the students. I would say, why do you want a mind map? Isn't it easier to just write the notes and do a summary? And for a student to explain to me, but Mrs. Lopez, this is how I think. Look at how it works. And she's explaining how she's mapping out her notes, and it's just a powerful tool, you know. So we're really excited where we're going to go with personalization, and just the more and more learning and opportunities for students. So quick snapshot at Woodbury Middle School. Any questions?
I have a question.
Yeah.
I just love all these things you do. It's amazing, and I want to thank you. It's really fun to see Woodbury Middle School continue to rise and how excited kids are and all the things they're doing. I'm wondering, with those kinds of ideas, especially the notes and the every eighth grader getting something special, do you guys at principals meetings, do you talk about, hey, this is what's working for us, and kind of try and replicate that? It's always that challenge of the uniqueness and culture of each of the buildings, but also when you see and hear good things, you really hope all kids have a chance to have access to that. I'm just wondering how that sharing happens at the principal level.
Yeah, and you know what? We do that. And one of the things that we do with our bosses is we provide principal evidence in different areas that we are evaluated on, and then those folders are shared out to other principals. So if they see something that maybe I'm doing at my school, they can give me a call. Hey, how'd you do this? How did it go? And I also think, we all PLC and we meet, we talk about it. So I think there's sharing across the board on those things, when we talk and provide it in our Google Docs and stuff. Yeah. Because I think pretty much every school I know does some stuff of this form. I think it's really our teachers. The video thing came from my teachers, and when I was sharing it with some, they're like, how did you do this? What did you do? And then it's more, how did you do it? Like, what did you use on the computer? How did you house those videos? So I think some of that piece, just teacher to teacher share out, is even more powerful than a principal to principal share out. Because teachers will, listening to them, they're like, oh, that's a great idea. I'm going to try that in my classroom. So try to share as much as we can. Thanks. There's a wealth of information in our district, right?
I was going to reiterate what you were saying. I said my daughter got a postcard from her teacher a couple years ago over over winter break or something, and so that was just, she really loved that, and it was really good connection. And so wherever it started, I'm sure in the district, they do. I saw that one at least. So.
Actually, this is something we just started at work. Just announced at our spring awards, and we have, just kind of a catching you do something good. So, see how that works.
And how's your expansion?
Oh my goodness. Well, it's now that students continue to, they always laugh when they come in building. You have 2 stories, so you always got to get through that piece. But the new addition is fabulous. The media center, I can't tell you how much students are in that media center, collaborating, working. When I've had people walk through, they're like, it's full. The media center is being accessed way more than it ever was prior to the rebuild. So it's been wonderful. We have a lot of kids, a lot of happy little kids flying around. So yeah, it's been great. Good.
Thank you.
All right. Yeah.
Good evening, Chair Brunnette, Dr. Jacobus, board members, and cabinet. My name is Dr. Lela Olson. I'm the principal at Valley Crossing Elementary School, and tonight I would like to highlight the multi-age choice program at Valley Crossing. The mission of our school is that our school, together with parents and community, provides and celebrates dynamic learning experiences which prepare children for a changing world. We have a video that was produced with the help of our communications department that encapsulates the multi-age experience, and I would like to share that with you at this time.
Hi, my name is Dr. Lela Olson. I'm the principal at Valley Crossing Elementary. Valley Crossing is home to District 833's multi-age choice program. So people might ask, what is multi-age education? And it has its roots in the beginnings of public education in the one-room schoolhouse. But nowadays, the multi-age education is the intentional placement of children who have a range of ages and ability together in the same classroom.
I had an amazing experience as a multi-age student. I attended Valley Crossing from kindergarten through 5th grade. And I think the opportunity to interact with people of different ages is something that was really valuable as an elementary school student, but still has a lot of positive impacts on me all these years later.
You don't teach to the middle. We teach to what are they ready for, when are they ready for it, and because we have rubrics and we know what each level needs, the student is more able to be matched with the level that they're ready for versus you're in 4th grade, so you get 4th grade.
There's this continuum of learning that happens. It's not just this amount that you're teaching and focusing on, it's this amount. And with that brings such an enrichment to their learning, both socially and academically.
In a multi-age classroom, instruction takes place in a variety of forms. First and foremost, there is whole group instruction, where all of the students within a classroom will be participating in a mini lesson. While students are working then with partners or small groups, the teacher will then pull small groups of children to hone in on those skills that are at a child's particular level.
The benefits of students being in a multi-age classroom cover so much of their school day. Not only is it a relationship that I develop with them over the years, but also with their mom and their dad. We know each other, and academically, when they come in the next year, I already have a base of knowledge where they're at. It's not starting over with a whole new group.
I like the fact that you have a teacher for 2 years because they take the time to get to know you, and it kind of elevates your learning experience because they can link your personality to the actual material.
The environment where the student is looking out for someone who's younger than them, that was really good for my children's just social development, and also it was just good for them to look out for someone who's younger than you and to take them under your wing and help them.
I can be a leader and role model, and I can teach like younger kids what it could be like when they're the older kid.
For the rest of our lives, we're not going to be working with people who are just our age or just like us. And so I think kind of having that integrated at a young age is really important, and it's helped me looking at high school and middle school, things like that. Being able to work with different types of people is really important.
People can learn from each other, and the younger students have like an ability to challenge themselves, and older students will be more responsible.
I feel like that it just overall improves your learning experience working with older or younger kids, and just it's all around, in my opinion, just a better way of learning.
It is easy to sign up for the multi-age choice program. Applications are required, and those are available on the South Washington County Schools website.
Thank you to our communications department for their help in putting together that particular video. It was fun to interact with students of a variety of different ages, including some that have moved on past Valley Crossing into their secondary education career, who had the opportunity to reflect on their experience and how it assisted them in their growth. So the video provided some information about the program within our multi-age program at Valley Crossing. Again, classes are made up of students more than 1 year apart. And so our multi-age configuration has kindergartners and first graders together in the classroom, second and third graders together, and fourth and fifth grade together. It is a mix of abilities, like all classrooms in our district, also an intentional mix of ages. With the multi-age program, the intention is for students to stay with the same teacher for more than 1 year. And the focus is on continuous progress. When we host information nights or when I'm touring families around at school, one of the most common questions is, well, how does this work? You've got students in more than one grade level. Why would you do that? How do you make that happen? And so for our instruction throughout the day, that instruction often starts with a whole group lesson. And so, but first I'll go back here. Students will start and end their day with a classroom teacher. And so at Valley Crossing, we call those classroom teachers home-based teachers. And so the home-based teachers will have both kindergarten and first graders together, or second and third, fourth and fifth. Throughout the day, instruction will start with a whole group lesson, and that is with learners of both grade levels. And so the teacher will have the opportunity to introduce a new skill or a concept. We'll model that for the children. They'll have guided practice right in front of the teacher, and then kids off they go to independent or small group work or partnership work in which they're trying out that skill or learning more about the concept. While that individual small group or partnership work is happening, that's when our teachers will then pull smaller groups to provide that very specific instruction at a child's individualized level. So that happens through guided reading, which is a structure that is used throughout the district in our elementary schools. Also, we'll bring in groups of readers around a particular skill or strategy lesson. In guided reading, the instruction happens generally around people with children around the same level of text. At Valley Crossing, we also utilize individual conferences between teacher and student, and that happens not only in reading, but in writing and sometimes in mathematics. Our multi-age teachers generally work together on teams, and so they're in teams of 2, sometimes larger. And during the day, it might be that students work with the other teacher on the team. This year, as our classroom teachers in grades K through 2 are in their first year of implementation with the Bridges math curriculum, we do a little more separating out by grade level with that. And over time, as Bridges becomes part, after we have some time under our belt, then it might be where second and third graders might have their instruction together for that as well. In the multi-age setting, our science and social studies topics are covered over a 2-year period. And so they are not as sequential as mathematics or some of the skills in reading or writing. So we want to make sure that kids that our same state standards are covered, but in those subject areas, it's covered over a 2-year period of time. Some of the benefits of multi-age instruction are that mixed age really reflects everyday life, and that a longer relationship within a multi-age setting happens between the child, the teacher, and the family. And in our district strategic plan, that personalization, that culture is important, those relationships. You hear often how that is the key to success with a child. And so within the multi-age setting, because of that length of the relationship with a child and with a teacher and with the family, that's really strengthened. We do feel that teachers with extra time with a child certainly do have a deeper knowledge of them, not only as a reader and a writer and a mathematician, but also they have deeper knowledge of their interests and their growth and their social and emotional skills. In the multi-age classroom and in all classrooms across the district, we know that we're going to have students who come to us with a wide range of skills and abilities. In the multi-age classroom, we know that span is going to be even wider, but we go in with that knowing that differences are expected, And with the fact that there is a lot of grouping and regrouping that happens throughout the day and over the course of the school year, we feel that individual differences don't tend to stick out as much because the range of what kids bring to us in the classroom is varied. I believe that there also are more regular opportunities for students to be a leader and also to help mentor others. What questions do you have about our multi-age program?
I have a question. I always have a question. I'm curious about your logo. I realized I just noticed it, how beautiful it is. So tell me about the logo of the school.
Yes, we had some student voting and things in terms of what our new mascot would be, and we chose the phoenix, which has some symbolic nature to it. And so as we were coming into District 833, we thought that this was coming together in a new beginning, and the phoenix helps represent that. Ben Reichel from one of our District 833 does a lot of the web work for the district and other tech and communications pieces. Volunteered to help us. We put out some feelers in the community trying to solicit some help in that design work, and Ben's like, nope, I really like this stuff, and we had some different iterations of that, and we're really pleased with the logo, and students at Valley Crossing are connected well with the phoenix, whether or not the deeper symbolism
It's great.
touches all of them, but
Yeah, that's wonderful. I understand too that the multi-ages became very popular. I mean, it's certainly when you were transitioning, there were a lot of concerns about, and some parents who were going there about that, but can you talk about the interest or the growing interest in multi-age?
Yes, absolutely. Currently, our student enrollment is at 678, and as you may know, the different types of classrooms that we have at Valley Crossing include the multi-age classrooms. We also have single grade classrooms. Currently, we have one section of each, so we have one kindergarten section, one first, one second, one third, one fourth, and one fifth. And then we also are home to the district's Gateway program, which is 5 classrooms, single grade, one in third grade, 2 in fourth, 2 in fifth, and in the Gateway classrooms, all of the students have been identified as gifted learners. Going back to your question, Michelle, within our multi-age choice program, and don't add up all the numbers because they don't quite add up, but we, for example, of the about 411 students in the multi-age program, 243 of them come from the Valley Crossing attendance boundary area, and we have 168 of them who are coming from elsewhere in the district. Whereas in our single grade classes, not including Gateway, 111 of those students come from the Valley Crossing attendance boundary area, 29 come from inter-district transfer.
Thank you.
The other thing I'd say about the multi-age or just the looping with the teacher, the model schools research shows that the top performing schools in the country are looping and doing that on a consistent basis. But one grade level that they find is the most powerful is looping from 8th to 9th grade.
Other questions tonight? Thank you for the opportunity to share.
Good evening, everyone. It's a little dangerous to give me a microphone. Just kidding. I'm Jodi Husting. I'm the principal at Crestview Elementary, and so I'm going to share a little bit with you tonight about our targeted services program at Crestview. And the reason that I picked targeted services to highlight this year is that we've been able to grow our programs for a variety of reasons, but probably the biggest and most obvious one is space. We have space. We have space to do things after school in our building. without having another school in session at the same time. That was really limiting prior to this year. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about how our program got a makeover, and then share a little bit about the numbers that we've had. So just some highlighted points. We only offer it January through March. We do have some other after-school opportunities earlier in the year, but we decided to really hone in on January, February, and March to be able to offer it 2 days per week, and to keep kids sustained in the program. We found that when we offered it for 2 different sessions, we lost interest over the second session, and so we really tried to tailor it over those months. We may expand it in future or upcoming years, but we're trying to build capacity for what we're doing now and then build on it later. So one thing that we know is that we have a lot of students in District 833 who don't have access to food after school, and so we applied for the snack program, and we qualified for it's like the meal snack program. And so each of the students that attend get a bag meal that includes either a sandwich or a bagel or fruit, vegetables, a cheese stick. So really a full meal after school, which is huge for some kids that might be depending on that for their dinner. We've also added active learning added to the start and the finish of the session each day. We know, especially in the winter in Minnesota, and this winter especially, it's been difficult for kids to have access to the outdoors as often, to get some of that physical activity in. Again, we offered it 2 days per week, and we aligned our classes with needs that were determined in our school improvement plan. And because we had students coming for targeted services, we coordinated with other programs happening at the same time, like GOB, Lego Club, and Young Authors. I did bring a couple of special guests tonight. So if the 3 of you want to stand, one person wasn't able to attend tonight, but Amy Ty, can you just wave, Amy? Amy is like the woman in charge for targeted services. She was really the brainchild of a lot of this and how it might work this year. And so Amy has put countless hours in to try to figure out how we could incorporate the physical activity, but then also I was able to help access the snacks for targeted services, but Amy figured out how we could get them to students quickly so it didn't interfere with our learning time. So she's done all the scheduling and coordinating of teachers, so thank you to Amy. Allison Dieheddle's here. She was one of our teachers, and she taught a STEM fairy tale class, so we tried to get really creative in our programming too. It wasn't just worksheets or iPad programs after school, and you'll see a video in a little bit that highlights some of the classes. And then Jana Zaremba from Community Ed. Was really vital that we really partnered with Community Ed, because we did some different things with how we presented our programming. So we had to add a little bit of time onto it. A lot of schools have 1 hour. We did ours for an hour and 15 minutes. So it just looks a little bit different. And so Jana worked very closely with Amy to get that to happen. And I really wanted Dawn Jansen, the cook manager for nutrition services at Crestview, has been a rock star, because we're short food service staff, but Dawn is so committed to helping kids after school that the food service staff at Crestview has really gone out of their way to pack all of these meals, and they don't have extra staffing for it. And so they're doing it really because they care about the kids at Crestview, and they're really a vital part of the team at our school. And so we wouldn't be able to provide the snack if they weren't willing to put that extra time in. And so thanks to all of you for coming tonight, and I can't tell you how much time and commitment all of these people have put into the targeted service program. And I'm just going to say more than I have, so thank you. So for the benefits of the program, looking over a 3-year period, we were able to, in the 16-17 school year, we offered 2 sessions, and we only had 30 students for each session. Last year, we did the January to March sessions with snack included, and we went up to 80 students, and this year we were up to 90 students, and that's not including the other programs that we offered. So these were just the students that were in targeted services. So we had a lot more kids at school than just the 90 kids after school, which is great. So we were running 6 classes plus GOB, Lego League, and Young Authors. The classes offered included math, reading, STEM, and active learning. We provide school programming 2 days per week for our targeted services students, previously offered 1 time per week. And then last year we added a showcase, and so the showcase is providing the opportunity for students to show family and friends and staff what they'd been working on during their targeted services sessions. It was a huge success last year, and we just held our showcase on Tuesday of this week, and the students get really excited and have something to look forward to. They're not just working on something, they're creating something to show at the end of the showcase. And so I have a little video that will highlight some of the programs that we have. And this was not done by District 833 Communications Department. It was done by the fabulous Jana and Amy. So thank you.
I love that you get to go in the gym and do stuff and work out.
Yeah.
And I love to eat.
Oh, yeah?
And we get to go in the gym again that I love really much.
And what does the rain stick do? What did you learn about it?
That we were learning about sounds.
Yeah? And how it makes its own sound?
Yeah.
How are you making your rain stick make sound?
We added notes and things.
What do you like about targeted services?
I like how we do I like how we do activities.
What's your favorite thing about targeted services?
Fortnite dances.
Show me.
So a couple of I think the big benefits of having the exciting classes and the movement and the food and then the culminating activity of the showcase, we're looking for any opportunity to really partner with parents in our schools, and we want Crestview to feel like the hub of the community for the families that are in our community school. And more and more over the past 5 years, we've just been finding that when we call students to come or families to come, they show up. We had something today. We had the state reports, and we had almost 100% attendance of a special guest for every single student at Crestview, and we just continue to try to provide those opportunities before and even after school. So, any questions?
I have a little other one. So, well, I wanted to say thank you, first of all, for all your leadership. Jodi in dealing with the ever bulging Crestview group of kids who all came out doing extraordinarily well, with thanks to you and your teachers for housing 2 schools together all those years. So it's fun to get over there now and see people being able to kind of flex in their space, which is really great. And I also wanted to say the same to Lela, and Kari, because you both have multiple groups of different children in your school. And that's some challenging times, and want to just thank you for your leadership. And two, I think, Kari, thank you for your support for the musical program that's grown up there. All the kiddos that I know who've come through there, their lives have been completely transformed through that opportunity that you've made available. So I know kids in all your schools and just the difference that your leadership has made. I just want you to know it. We know, and thank you so much for all you've done.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for sharing all the special things going on in your schools. 7.2 is our curriculum review cycle, and our Director of Teaching and Learning Services, Kelly Jansen, will talk to us about that.
All right, that's a tough act to follow. Now we get to boring administrative work, right? I should have brought a video with puppies. Maybe that would have helped. Yes, yeah, Fortnite dances. I just discovered Fortnite over Christmas, or over winter break, so. All right, good evening, Chair Brunnette, Dr. Jacobus, and board members. Tonight I'm here just to give you a preview of our curriculum review cycle and walk through it and answer any questions you have. This is a living, breathing document, and we'll always be having conversations. MDE doesn't always come out with standards when they say they are, or we don't always get through the phases as we say we will. So, yeah, no offense. But I think that it was a good start to build on how we're going to continue to have these conversations with our departments and with our teachers around personalization, and how are we infusing equity work into our curriculum, and how are we seeing the mission of South Washington County Schools? As the saying goes, if everything is important, then nothing is important, right? So that was the purpose of this, is to try to narrow in a reasonable timeline that we could go through this. So in front of you, you have the actual PDF, and the slides are just they just refer to pages. So I'm going to work from that so that so folks that are watching at home can see as well. On page 3 begins the introduction. And some of the keywords that make up the goals of that curriculum review cycle that you see on the top there: equal access, high quality curriculum, 21st century learners, responding to societal change, recognizing and honoring diversity, making sure our students are seeing themselves in our instruction and in our materials. And then the last 2 bullet points you see there align directly with our strategic plan. So this is directly tied to what our kids and our teachers are experiencing in their classroom every day. The bottom paragraph speaks to the academic standards, and the standards are revised on a schedule determined by MDE for most of them. Some of them are national standards, and you'll see that as we look at the cycle in its entirety. And so our cycle is guided by MDE's revision schedule. When you go to page 4, you will see some key terms and understandings. And this definition of curriculum was established last year when the district began discussing the math curriculum. So when we say, what do you mean when you say curriculum? And a lot of people go right to textbooks. And so it's more than books. It's standards, it's professional development, it's scope and sequence, it's evidence of student learning, and materials and resources. So we're encompassing everything when we say curriculum. We also wanted to be clear and have people understand that our specialized programs are infused in our conversations throughout the process. So Spanish immersion isn't a separate thing that we'll look at. It'll be infused as we talk about science, and it'll be infused as we talk about math. And that goes for all of those programs that you see listed there. That also goes for services like special education and EL, and all of those voices will be at the table through the conversations. At the bottom of page 4 is the general overview of the cycle. Each of these phases is explained in subsequent pages, so I'm just going to go through it really briefly here. But after the gray review of standards, you begin in a focus year, which is an in-depth look at the standards. And then in year 2, you begin that program development and decisions around materials and resources. And then you enter into implementing changes and resources. And as you know, change takes time, and especially in a system as large as ours. So that's where that implementation year 1, year 2, and year 3 comes from, with different motivating factors in every year. And you know, our goal is at the end that you move to things that are expected, routine, supported, and then you also have decided what's left our system and what are we taking out of our system in order to make room for this. There's continuous improvement through conversations and PLCs, and then with MD being on approximately a 10-year cycle, that's a long time, and a lot changes in that amount of time. So we wanted another focus year in there where we would bring everyone back to the table and revisit things on a little bit less level than focus year 1, but just give them some time to reflect on any changes that have happened within their department over those years. So that's it at a glance. We'll go through each of these stages. So page 5 is an explanation of a focus year. And the document you're looking at is like the public consumption of this document. So it's written at a very high level. And so anything you see that's underlined has a process, has a form, has something that goes along with it that we will internally keep, and I'll be happy to go through all of that later, or we'll invite you to sessions if you want to sit through some teams. But so this is a real high level. In the focus year, the objectives are to establish a team, and we're calling it the Content Curriculum Review Team. We love our acronyms in education, so the CCRT. And that team is stakeholders and content experts, so our teachers. We're going to invite our teachers to the table to have these conversations. They'll engage in the review process and be the voice of other teachers, along with being the communication pipeline between what's happening and then their schools. In the focus year, some of our objectives are establish a vision and mission for our departments or our content areas, and a desired profile of an 833 student. Ultimately, when they leave us, what do we want a student to have and be able to do? So when a student graduates, what's our vision for a science kid? What do we want for all of our kids when they graduate as science? So we'll have those visionary conversations to start. And then also in this year, teams will go through that SBI process that you've become so familiar with over the last few years, the prioritizing standards, establishing success criteria, evaluating current practice and resources, and then determining how we can improve. And then near the end of that focus year, the teams will begin to research best practices and materials and resources. So that'll start in that first year, but it's important to know what you want students to know and be able to do before you can put a resource to that. At the program development year then picks up right where the focus year left off. So the next year we will continue that research of best practice. We'll add some site visits, possibly resources review, vendors review, and then the goal is by the end of that program development year, we're ready for program changes that may include a curriculum adoption. So those are some big years after those new standards come out that we'll be spending some really focused time with our stakeholders. And once all those decisions have been made, we start the implementation. And we've done a few of these steps this year as we've walked into our Bridges implementation. But it's important that we have checks along the way and we have support for teachers along the way so that we implement our curriculum and our programming and our changes with fidelity. You hear that word a lot when it comes to curriculum implementation. And what does that mean? And so it's important, especially in that first year, that we're really into it and having the conversations about what's working and what's not. And our teachers become action researchers and trying this curriculum with their kids and then having those conversations in their PLCs so that they can make changes because they are the experts in the classrooms. So then pages 8 and 9, there's similar steps in 8 and 9, and the goal is that we support teachers where they are. You heard Lela talk, or or Kari talk about meeting teachers where they are with professional development. We ask our teachers to do that with our students, and we want to do the same with our teachers. And we know there's varying levels of support necessary. So that's our goal in these years 2 and 3, between surveying teachers and between principals having interviews with teachers. How are you feeling about this? What else can I do for you? A lot of the work that we're doing in these systemic implementation years is based off the CBAM model, if you're familiar with that, for change. It's called the concerns-based adoption model, and I just really don't like that word concerns, so I want to rebrand it into, you know, how to systemically implement change. But it's been exciting this year as we've done a few of these things with Bridges, and I'm looking forward to moving ahead even deeper as we get into the cycle. Once we've made those changes, we know that it's not going to be the same every year. We're not building cars, we're raising children. So there definitely needs to continue to be conversations, and those are happening through our PLCs. We will continue to monitor and adjust, and as John Hattie talks about, the collective efficacy of teachers is one of the biggest factors in student achievement. And so getting teachers to the table and having conversations about what works and giving them the time to do that is a key factor. Then about midway through that 10-year, they'll come back to the table for focus year two. They'll talk about their needs. They'll know their kids. We'll do a gap analysis. Where are some things that we could do even better? And so we wanted that opportunity that was supported by the district to come back together. Then this is the chart that everybody goes right to, and it's very small up there, but it's larger in yours. It's a big picture overview of the cycle based on when standards are reviewed. And I should note that since posting this, we did change the art and music timeline because it was brought to our attention, and it was an oversight on our part that there was an expectation that the new standards are implemented, I believe, in 2021. So we have split the art and music, and they are now, K-5 will be in a focus year next year for art and music. So that is a change that we just did within the last day or two. I would also note that SEL, or social emotional learning, is listed specifically for K-5, but that doesn't mean we don't focus on it in grades 6-12. At that level, social emotional or student expectations, there's a lot more conversation in advisories and in homerooms, and it becomes very school specific. You've heard Kari talk about how they personalize learning and how they get to know kids. And so the secondary schools aren't, it's not that they're not doing SEL, it's just done in a very different way. But next year, our K-5 will be in a focus year for social emotional learning. Some of the other acronyms you see up there, CTE stands for Career and Technical Education. This encompasses departments like agriculture, family and consumer sciences, industrial technology and business, and then STEM, which is science, technology, engineering, and math. So those are some of the other acronyms. And then the key is just the years in which that we just spoke about, that those departments and or subjects would be in the cycle. It was spread out like this because of the standard review, but we also did split K-5 and 6-12. And so here's a summary, and this is on page 13. And the reason we did that was a few reasons we did that was just support, the people to support this work and guide those content curriculum review teams. And the time that we would be taking people out of the classroom, we didn't want it to be a really large group, so we did want to make sure we were able to sustain that. And budget. Unfortunately, Dan gives me a budget, and I have to stay within it, so I knew we couldn't just buy everything in 1 year. So, and curriculum is very expensive. You know, purchasing curriculum is very expensive, so we put it at a pace that was manageable so that we could still look at major adoptions along with keeping up with needs that come up every year, the textbooks that break or things like that. So. On the last page, also page 13, is my contact information. And a big part of our curriculum advisory is this document and kind of reviewing it every year and where are we and talking about the area that's in a focus year. So if you're interested, if people are seeing this, please shoot me an email. We're up to 5 members now, so just give me some time, Dr. Jacobus, and we will be using this room and have it full. So that is it. This was just a real brief, like I said, high picture overview. The document you have is the public document, and there is a lot of other work and documents that go into this. But we're excited to get going, and the TLS department's excited to support this work. So, any questions?
Maybe it's more request. I don't talk loud enough. All right. You know, again, I appreciate the cycle, but it seems like, at least myself personally as a board member, it seems like when the adoption comes, it's really, I really can't influence at that point. You know, the committees have done their work, and I've usually honored it, but, you know, and some of this stuff comes a little bit controversial sometimes. How do we get the board involved to know prior to when we have to quote-unquote adopt it, so that we can have a discussion of quote-unquote some of these controversial things that may be within that curriculum?
So without knowing what you're speaking specifically about controversy, I would say that with this cycle in place, I'm happy to have a standing agenda item with Dr. Jacobus where it's, you know, a TLS update on the curriculum. Pat also serves on the Curriculum Advisory Committee, so I think that would be a good venue to give updates as well. I think change is hard and controversial, so I think you're going to run into that with a lot of different changes, but our goal is that people are given a voice in that process and we hear them, and then we can try to address that as we go. But I'm happy to give regular updates on where we are with each subject that's meeting.
I just have a comment. As a principal who also did the job of the curriculum, I'm just amazed at what you do. And it's a huge job, and you are doing a wonderful job. I appreciate you so much.
Thank you.
You know, back to your comment, Ron, when it gets to that point and they're reviewing and starting to look at that, Pat can bring to also where the group is, and that may be a chance for other board members to attend the advisory committee and take a look for themselves, and to make sure that those materials or the discussions are available to all of the board as you work through.
Yeah, and I certainly don't want to overstep the management versus governance either. You know, I'm not asking to be part of the whole process and sit through everything, but it's just, you know, and after being on the board, there's been a couple of them that have come forward that all of a sudden, you know, we get parents, you know, showing up that day, and it's like, well, pretty much the train's left the station at that point. So how we can address it or be prepared at that point too. So
I think if we were able to also get teachers and come through this process and share their voice with you at a work session like this where we give a curriculum update, I think you hear from administrators a lot, so I think it'd be great if we could bring teachers that are part of the process to the table for conversations too. That would be great.
I have a question. So I know we're talking when we were doing the bridges, how we did the K2, and then to try to make it kind of a seamless transition, we go to 3-5, but then it looks like we wait an awful long time for a 6-12. I mean, is there a reason that there's a big gap?
Yep. So without being involved in why we went ahead with math at the time that we did, I wasn't part of that conversation. I would say that the reason math is where it is because that's when MDE reviews the standards. And I also think that wait time is going to be good with what we're seeing with our kids coming up with the number sense and the number talk ability. I think our middle schools and our high schools are going to really evolve in what the sequence of math looks like, because our kids are going to be coming up, and if they've gone, especially our K through 5, if they've gone K5 with bridges, they're a different math mind than our 6th grade teachers are currently seeing. So it's not ideal to have that gap, definitely. I do think in this case it might be a benefit to see that evolution in the elementary and then give it time to get up to the middle school and the high school. But yeah, like I said, I'm not sure why we did math. I know we were short on resources and we were concerned about student achievement in the math area. So those are pretty broad, but yeah, I think at that time will help but it's not ideal. As you can see, we try not to do that in any other subject area.
Now, when these types of things, do we adjust some things? I mean, I know it wouldn't be a whole new curriculum, but I mean, do we adjust so that these kids aren't, I mean, especially with math, when we talked about the new math, and it took kids so long to get in that different mind that, will they be in this mindset, and then all of a sudden now the teachers are teaching to what they know instead of teaching what these kids are. Like you were saying, these kids will have a different mindset, but are we going to train our teachers to have that same mindset, I guess?
Yes, they've had a lot of conversations in the standards, the SBI process that they've gone through the last couple of years. So they have definitely, they understand what's happening in the elementary, and teachers are adjusting every day. And I think math in particular is one of those subject areas that is really going to change a lot in the next few years. And so they definitely are adjusting. The conversations with our math SBI groups over the last couple months have been awesome. Angie Lawrence and Leah Boulos are leading those, and they're coming back and they're just like, it's amazing what the algebra teachers in the middle school and the high school are talking, and so yeah, they're definitely adjusting. There's also a process, and knowing that, you know, we haven't allocated funds to curriculum for a while, that there is a process for teachers to request resources. And so knowing that math isn't for 4 years, we are getting a lot of math. Like I would like more manipulatives, and that's in a middle school, and we hadn't heard that in the past. So there is a process for teachers to request needs when they're not in a focus year.
Good. Thank you.
So I will put my plug in that social emotional learning should definitely be addressed K-12, and that even if we're dealing with it differently at the secondary level, we should still have a common framework as a district that we're operating from. So that is my personal push. I feel strongly about. And you mentioned that there was a change to the art and music, and can you talk about that? And then sort of maybe the second part of my question, and maybe why art and music shifted, was as you were developing this, and I know obviously being new to the district, there were decisions made and sort of a cycle or something set up before you got here, but did we look at when subjects were reviewed last in the district as you were developing this?
The last one I could find was 1999, maybe? That was great. 1999? So it's been over 19 years that there's been an intentional look at a subject area. The art and music was just an error on my part. That was, when we were looking at when standards were adopted, we didn't look back at MDEs, and so they did adopt new standards 2 years ago, and now they're in the rulemaking year, and so that's why we moved that up to next year. So
I have a quick question too. So I guess like it's been interesting too as we been visiting the schools and learning more, as I've learned a little more into the weeds about sort of the electability of curriculum. So it's somewhat surprising that, wow, the schools can decide, do we want to have a curriculum or not have a curriculum, or we can make our own curriculum. And so it just sort of seems always to me be an assumption that we have a curriculum. So is there, and I heard, we heard different schools have different things, right? Some people are really excited for Bridges, like a lot of the elementary schools are like, yay, we finally have a curriculum, and others are like, well, we have our own and it's better. So I'm just curious, are we moving, is there any uniform move, or are we still kind of open to what schools and teachers want to do? Because I know it's a tough call, right? The blend between, again, personalization also means there could be some, things done differently, but then also how do you implement standards without like a standard curriculum?
Yep, and that was the purpose of this, is that there's a district core resource that is provided and expected to be used. Now, knowing that schools will individualize and there's that personalization piece, but we do have a vision for the district to be a district, and that there's a district provided resource. A lot of that is the support that we're able to provide. And how do we then differentiate professional development if we've got 16 different curriculums out there? And how do we implement when we know we have 16 different? So we are moving that direction, and that is the expectation. All the schools adopted the 3-5 bridges. So that was a change. So we are moving that direction. It's going to be an interesting conversation, just to give you a little heads up, in a couple of years that when we start talking about English language arts, because we have a lot of different things happening in all of our elementary schools. We have a great framework and guided reading and all of that, but there's a lot of different resources, and so there's going to be a lot of interesting conversations during that focus year.
Is that the same for middle school and high school? I mean, the same thing? Do we have standard curriculums, or are they kind of different at every school?
Right now they're different.
They are.
But the goal would definitely be to standardize them. And especially, that's why I was kind of going with those math conversations, especially those math courses that kids are getting high school credit for. And so making sure that the high school and the middle school are aligned is going to be important too. So.
Right.
And Michelle, I think what's important is that when the district spends this amount of time reviewing curriculum area and the purchase of resources, and Kelly defined how we're defining curriculum, just the professional development, it's not optional to not use the resource that the district has selected as the core resource. And so there are accountability checks when you think about K2 math, that we're going into classrooms and taking a look at the resources being used in those classrooms. And that gets back to that whole fidelity. It's not okay that we're still using resources from years ago to teach math, in particular math, because we're looking at math in a different way. But I think that really is a point that we've had conversations as we adopted this new math, that it's not optional to not use the resource. The expectation is that every school will be using the resource that's purchased. K2 math was slightly unique because of some work that had been done previously. But moving forward, all sites, content areas will have a core resource.
It's also a lot to ask of our teachers that bid into different schools, and there's a completely new thing I have to learn, and so providing that consistency will help as well.
Well, and I think some of our kids move from school to school, and so, I mean, certainly yes for the adults in the building, but also for our kids and our families, or families who have kids at multiple sites for whatever reason. I think it's important.
I think too, as the demands for what kids and people need after they leave us, content needs to start to shift differently. It's not about that answer, because you can get the answer no matter how complex it is quickly with all the different devices. It's about using that content to get to those higher level thinking and all the skills we've talked about for 20 years about 21st century. They're here now, and we need to start shifting with what does that mean for our curriculum and the resources that we do choose.
So I also think because another thing we've heard a lot about is just the kind of the sense of overwhelm about all the change happening for teachers. And so also embedding that sort of change management. I mean, it sounds like it's here, so that's good to see. I mean, on the one hand, you're like, it's going to take us 10 years, to get someplace, but I can get it now too, having been out there, that it does take time, because these teachers have to learn and absorb and digest, and everybody's got to. So that the notion of there being a cycle, people kind of know. I mean, I would think that, do you find that to be comforting to teachers to see, okay, we're going to focus on you, not right now, but we're going to focus on, or.
And the teachers are just learning about this. The goal is that principals shared this with teachers by tomorrow, so some of them are going to see it tomorrow during the workshop day. But especially, as you mentioned, our elementaries, I'm hopeful that what they get out of this is that they can breathe for a few years, and it won't be a brand new, English language arts curriculum coming down, or so that they'll have a few years to settle into the things that they've been asked to do. So
that reminded me of there were some comments at some of the schools in the listening sessions. I know we'll talk more about it, but to have the opportunity or experience of, if I'm a fourth grade teacher at Hillside, to be able to talk to fourth grade teachers at Grey Cloud, or if I'm a music teacher, art teacher, whatever, at other schools, to have time together. So I think too, and I'm guessing that'll fall under you, Kelly, but maybe not, or yes. So just keeping those opportunities in mind, and looking at different ways we can do that, and create ways for teachers to share how, as they're using these new resources and curriculum, how they're doing that. Because I think, as we see in all of our school showcases, that they are doing really cool things, and so giving them as many opportunities as we can to learn from each other.
Sure, yeah. I'm grateful for the calendar changes that have been made at the board level, because those days are used, you know, they're great use for teachers. I know it's a hardship for families often, but it's a invaluable time for teachers, so.
Kelly, do you want to share our WebEx experience for tomorrow? How we'll have everybody in one room?
Yeah, I was going to say that maybe we'll get to that point, but tomorrow we're testing out a WebEx with our principals, so I should have done it with our kindergartners first, maybe. Our principals are going to be with their grades 3, 4, and 5 staff at their schools, and I'll be here, and we are going to have a virtual question and answer after they've gone through a morning of Bridges information stuff, trying to help them with the implementation next year. How can you prepare? And so the principals will be with their groups, and Christine and Mike and Julie will be standing in for a few schools, so we'll see how that goes. Maybe we'll have virtual
I have technology
PLCs
on call.
Bob's like, I might not be around. I'm like, that's funny, Bob.
I have a backup number, Bob.
Yep.
Thanks. 8.0 information items, 8.1 achievement and integration plan and budget. Educational achievement and integration coordinator Trina Patterson will join us.
Good evening, Chair Brunnette, school board members, and Superintendent Jacobus. I'm Trina Patterson, the Achievement and Integration Coordinator, and tonight I'm going to share an update with you on the Achievement and Integration Plan and Budget for the 2018-19 school year, which was originally scheduled, we got it, March 7th. Okay, so as you know, the purpose of the Achievement and Integration Program is to pursue racial and economic integration, increase student achievement, create equitable educational opportunities, and reduce academic disparities based on students' racial, ethnic, and economic background in Minnesota public schools. There are 2 state statutes that are related to this funding, Minnesota Statute 124D 861 and 862, which can be found on MDE's website. MDE also states that districts eligible to participate in this program must submit an achievement and integration plan under Minnesota school desegregation and integration rules. Based on these statutes, District 833 does qualify for this funding, and the purpose of this funding is specifically focused on underserved, underrepresented, and under-resourced students, but all students can access these strategies that I will be discussing this evening. And I know you've heard these strategies, but just as a reminder, I will quickly review our goals and strategies. So goal number 1, well, we're currently in year 2 of a 3-year plan, and this plan was approved by the board and MDE in 2017. These are the same goals that were shared at the World's Best Workforce public meeting this past fall. Goal 1 is related to state proficiency targets in reading by 3rd grade. We want to increase proficiency from 71% in 2015 to 79% in 2020, which is an annual increase of 2.6%. We also have an objective with this goal based on the feedback and suggestions from the past Achievement and Integration Parent Advisory Committee that is specific to African American males. Now, while MDE does not allow for goals to target specific groups, it is permissible to have an objective that does so. And so the objective is to decrease the achievement gap among African American males compared to white males from 18% in 2016 to 10% in 2020, as measured by the MCA reading test, which is a 2.6 annual difference. Goal number 2 is related to our ACT Reading College Readiness benchmark of 22. The goal is to increase the percentage of students reaching that benchmark from 53% in the class of 2016 to 65% in the class of 2020. Now here you'll see the strategies that we have listed to support the plan. I have a slide for each of these strategies, and many of you, and you're familiar with many of these strategies, and we have a few new ones that have been added on. So family and community engagement. We have many family engagement events that take place throughout our district that this department helps support. We have a Latino Family Night, African American celebrations, Native American Family Night, Hmong New Year, Lunar New Year, and we also have our new HBCU fair and the All Pro Dad's Breakfast that takes place in many of our schools as well. These events are designed to help bring our community members together and into our schools and build positive relationships with our families. Our academic success coaches, we now have 5. We added another part-time academic success coach at Pullman Elementary School, which is a Title I school. We have 5 licensed elementary school teachers with a caseload of 30 students that fall within the achievement gap and or the underserved or under-resourced population. They work with students on social emotional interventions, academic interventions. They conduct home visits to connect with parents and guardians and provide any other services that will help students to become successful in school. Professional development for staff. The culturally relevant teaching work is continuing, and it's provided through AVID sessions during the school year and with summer training. We are continuing our CLRT work, culturally, linguistically relevant teaching with Dr. Holly. And by the end of this school year, we will have 17 schools that have gone through the coaching process. And we've brought on 2 internal CLR coaches to help sustain the work internally in our district. And we believe that by having our own internal coaches, this is going to help to reduce our expenses in this area in the long run. Dr. Mays is continuing to provide personal development for staff, in addition to working with our teaching and learning department and the social studies teachers on infusing more cultural history and perspectives into the social studies curriculum. Additionally, in conjunction with Dr. Kevin Weatherspoon and the Human Resources Department, we were able to bring in Mr. Rick Petrie. He's a life coach and adjunct professor at Mitchell Hamlin School of Law to facilitate workshops on communicating and understanding personal values, beliefs, and perspectives through a cultural lens, and this is for all employee work groups. Cultural liaisons, we have 8, and our newest, Brittany Amatrano, you met at the last school board meeting, our Native American liaison. We have Carlos Miles, Gregory Van Leer, Hussein Yusuf, he's our new liaison, and he is working with our Somali families to help bridge that gap. He's bilingual. Olivia Alston is also a new liaison. Sammy Ricks, Tanya Sprague works specifically with our Latinx families, and then Tracy Barris is also one of our liaisons. And while they are assigned to specific schools, I want to just make sure that everyone knows that they support all the schools in the district. The liaisons work with teachers, counselors, administrators in the buildings to determine how they can best serve and support the students and the families. And on a monthly basis, our liaisons will connect with about 1,700 students, and that includes the caseloads that they have, student groups that they facilitate, and students who may just spontaneously stop into their office and seeking some support and assistance from them. And if you factor in the academic success coaches with their caseloads, we're providing daily direct student support to over 1,800 students in 17 out of our 24 buildings. So maybe small numbers, but we're very mighty. Our Young Scholars program. Our Young Scholars teacher is Colleen Redmond. She's now full-time starting this year. And this program is designed to find and nurture gifted potential in elementary students from historically underrepresented and underserved populations that are not currently in our gifted and talented program. And the goal is to prepare these students for advanced academic coursework. And Colleen is going to be here at our next board meeting, and she'll share more about the Young Scholars program with you. Be Your Dream. Again, this is another program designed to provide opportunities for historically underserved and underrepresented student populations. The Wolf Riders is a performance-based step team at Park High School. Students are engaged in peer tutoring, college visits, volunteer activities, and performances around the Twin Cities. This program is in collaboration with Equity Alliance. Another one of our Equity Alliance collaborations is the Youth Executive Board. 10 students from District 833 were selected to participate in this multi-district leadership board. Students meet weekly, engage in team-building activities, and forge relationships with students from other districts around the Twin Cities. They learn about social and political change. They create year-long service learning projects to address the achievement gap, and they use their power in positive ways to influence change. Recruitment and retention. Achievement and integration, we're working closely with the Human Resources Department on recruitment and retention by attending job fairs, and we have started the affinity group for staff of color. And I'd like to just kind of pause here and just make sure that we understand that authentic affinity groups of any kind, whether it's for staff, for students, or for families, they're not created with the purpose of being divisive or to segregate any specific group. It is actually the opposite. They are created to bond and bridge. These affinity groups are created to bond groups with a sense of connectedness and bridge gaps that may exist in their schools or workplace environment. Studies have also shown that when groups or communities are invited into a space and feel included and as if their voices are heard, they are more likely to become engaged on a larger scale, which is what we would like for all of our community members and families to feel a part of. These groups are a step towards building a positive culture and climate in our school district as outlined in our strategic plan. And also we are exploring grow your own programs to increase teachers of color in our school district. And with the limited pool of teachers of color, we are looking at other opportunities to bring professionals of color into our district in front of our students, possibly through teaming up with corporations or other local institutions of higher learning. AVID, as you know, has been in our district for many years, and it actually has been a great support for our students, some of whom are first-generation college-bound. This is district-wide. Teachers 3 through 12 are trained, and it's an elective course in middle and high school, where we currently have 1,140 students enrolled in AVID classes. And Molly Lester, our AVID district coordinator, is going to be here at the end of the school year, and she'll share more data with you to support the AVID program. As part of the requirements for the A&I funding, we are required to have collaborations with other school districts and integrating our students with their students through programming. We are still working with St. Paul Public Schools, providing 16 pre-K spots to their students at Woodbury Elementary. We are continuing our collaboration with District 196 through Young Scholars STEM Nature's Science program, and our students attend this program in the summer for 1 week during the day and are exposed to various STEM activities. We are also exploring new collaborations with Stillwater area schools. And once we have finalized the details of the programs for the students, I'll be coming back to you to seek approval for that. Now that you've heard about the strategies in the plan, you do have our budget in front of you. So you can take a few minutes to review, a few seconds, not minutes. We can take a little bit of time to review those. And let me know if you have any questions as it relates to the budgets or as it relates to the plan that I've set before you. And I do want to note, on the budget, you may notice a significant increase from MDE that we have recently found out about. And so while I don't have that allocated at this point, I am working with finance to determine how to best spend that so that we are remaining inside that 80-10-10, those parameters for spending of that money. And once we figure that out, again, I will be back to you for seeking approval for use of that.
Any questions?
Just an observation. Trina and Christine, you guys are doing a good job. In my circle of influence that I have in the community, the Lunar New Year, I met with the Hmong community, and we at Mitchell Hamlin implemented the Lunar Year, which had over 100 community members come to it. And then, of course, we always celebrate African American heritage, but at Woodbury Senior High School, they had this African American Student Union had a wonderful African American night where they had meals from around the world. They had a fashion show. They included poetry and some history lessons, which was really magnificent. I I applaud them. Then I was approached by someone in Stillwater, a student who is probably on an island by itself, to start an African American student union at Stillwater High School. So they'll probably be getting with our students. I've connected them together so that they can do the same thing. And then additionally, the training that we're doing is magnificent. I've heard from some teachers, and they are hungry for it. So, and I applaud that. And affinity groups, yes, they are much needed, and we have a lot of them around the state. Well, they're lawyers, but they connect well to bring a vision and a mission to the community. So I applaud you guys.
I had a question too. It's very exciting to see the growth of this whole area, and again, knowing students who've been touched by the programs. And one of the things when I looked at the goals, there, of course, our primary goals are academic, but I think it would be, when I, thinking about Kari Lopez having kind of that survey of students and how they feel connected to the school, and does somebody care about me? I'm just thinking too, could some of those types of goals be integrated? Because I think that sense of belonging, or some of the issues we've had really are about, in terms of race-based tension in the school, have to do with that connectedness. So I don't know if you've thought about that, or maybe you do that, or are those additional goals we could be looking at?
We, at Woodbury High School and Lake, and one of the other middle schools, I'm sorry, Olivia Olson, she does a girls group. Now, it's not on a large scale, but the groups that she's doing with the girls, she has put out a survey and asking some of those same questions. If you feel like there's a teacher that you connect with, or another adult in the building that you connect with, do you feel safe? Do you feel a part of and included? So we haven't done it on a larger scale, but we are getting to that. So we've started out a little bit small, but yes, that's very important to understand student voice, to hear that.
Great. We did have, in a couple of the school listening sessions, and keep bringing those up, but they've been really helpful. But we did have some teachers ask us about the impact or the benefit, or where are we going with our culturally responsive teaching goals, and having Dr. Shiraki Holly. And so I also think just kind of feeding back to them the sort of the, and even the student success stories of people might be great too, because they've all been going through this. But I hear some of them going, where are we, just, seeing that impact, because it is quite amazing. So thanks.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Thank you very much. All right, 8.2, long-term facilities planning, Assistant Superintendent Julie Nielsen and Director of Finance Dan Pyan.
Good evening, school board members and colleagues. We are as excited as all of you are, I'm sure, to begin the long-range facility planning process that typically takes us well over a year. I know, Michelle, it's hard to believe that we're bringing up that LRFP process again. The previous long-range facility plan was approved over 4 years ago on November 20th, 2014. And as a result of that plan, the district successfully completed a bond election to build the new Oltman Middle School and update spaces at Woodbury Cottage Grove Middle School, as well as Lake Middle School. The purpose of creating a new long-range facility planning team is to review enrollment projections and consider growth in our community, to identify space needs, review educational delivery systems, and consider facility updates for schools that are in need. At the top of that will continue to be bathrooms in our old prototype schools, if you recall that from previous needs assessments. What you will see attached, right there, Bob, you are on cue, is the process that we are recommending to the board. And when I say we, sitting next to me, Dan Pyan, Dan Hines, and Kwame Ayim will be facilitating and leading that overall long-range facility process. So the process not new to the board, and certainly open to recommendations and any suggestions. If we look above the line, you'll see that's the plan development phase. And if you recall, that's where we have an internal group, a steering committee, made up of administrators, department leads, that really they're guiding the process. And you see the arrows going back and forth between what's called the steering committee and the long-range facility task force. The task force, again, is the group of people, group of individuals both from our community, families, as well as district stakeholders that will be getting feedback and then going back to the steering committee. So it's that back and forth. The reason the school board is right at that plan development phase above the line is really we rely on the school board to providing regular updates, as well as in the month of April approving the guiding change document. And so that will come to you. I'm not sure if it's going to be first meeting in April or second meeting that we will complete as a steering committee that guiding change document. On the left-hand side, as you look at the plan development, you will see that there are a variety of individuals that need to be interviewed. And really, that's just to gather information about what are our current needs, along with needs that may have been unmet from previously, 4 years ago. How are we moving those things forward? On the right side, you'll see the steering committee is looking at enrollment projections, our overall capacity calculations. We'll be working with the cities on growth and where is that growth going to be occurring within our communities, as well as once we have those needs identified, what would be the costs of additions? What would be the costs of bathrooms? And so we will be gathering all those needs along with costs. And again, as I shared as part of that plan development, going back and forth between our steering committee and long-range facility task force. The middle area really is that feedback loop. And within that feedback loop, again, we would have community meetings where once we come up with our packages, our color plans, however we set that up this round, we would have community meetings where we go out and share possible options to our long-range facility planning and how we could best meet our needs. So we will take input at that point, as well as then going back to our task force with what we heard our community say. And again, as we enter into the decision making, you'll see the arrows going back and forth. It's kind of a shuffle back and forth between the task force and the steering committee before the steering committee makes a final recommendation to the superintendent and school board, and then the school board would adopt whatever recommendation determined based on. Probably would bring 2 or 3 options similar to previous years. So this is the process that we're recommending. We convene just a small group of internal stakeholders that will more than likely be part of the steering committee. But moving forward, we would just like to make sure that the board is informed that this is the process we're planning to use, and that the steering committee would begin their work of putting together the guiding change document. In addition, communication will be going out tomorrow, I believe. I don't know if it went out today, to solicit anyone who is interested in participating as a community member or staff member to participate in that long-range facility planning process as a task force member. Last time we did this in 2014, I believe we had over 30 individuals that were part of that process. So for people watching at home, please, if you're interested in participating again or have a new interest in being part of the committee, please be sure to apply and send in the application. Any questions or comments?
I do. So I would love to see, I think it would be great if we got some of the government officials, I don't know where and which or how, from our cities involved in this at some point, because we really, in order to build on some of these recommendations, I think we need to get more of their buy-in and support. I mean, just the development itself of these communities, we're all working hand in hand, right? The new developments come in, now we need a new school. Where are we going to put our buses? You know, I'd love to see us, you know, maybe in some way get more buy-in from some of them on some of the things that might have to come on down, you know, some of the decision making.
In terms of facilities, Michelle?
Yeah, in terms of the facilities, and, you know, even if what happens from this, if we have to go out for bond again and things, I feel that maybe if they're involved in the grassroots development of the plan too, that they would see how these things interrelate. So that's just a thought, and they don't have to be active members, but I'd love to talk about that, of just getting our city officials, their planning groups, maybe they all have planning commissions, that they at least or have some opportunity to both listen and contribute.
And if I recall, in 2014, we had our cities do a presentation to the task force, and I remember them having colored maps, so they actually showed for the various cities where the growth was expected. And so I think they did a presentation not too long, the cities did a presentation here for the board about where that growth is anticipated. And so we would see a similar thing, that they would certainly play a role in sharing information with the steering committee as well as the task force. We'll definitely need that information about growth as we move forward, because I know things have been adjusted.
Yeah, I think it's that I've seen it, just seen some other school districts, they working with, I feel like it's sort of a silo, right? And we have really good working relationships, but we know where some of these questions might go, and we need to, I'm just thinking again about our, like, as simple as our buses. We have to park our buses somewhere, and we have, we need our city's help. So if we're going to expand and grow, they're making those decisions, and then we're supposed to just respond, and it's been interesting to me because the public has said that. We've had teachers again say, well, why don't you guys control how many, like, well, we don't get to control the housing development. But so I think that kind of a question, sort of question, getting them involved in that would be interesting, because we are really collaborators, and we're very much both tied into the decisions each other makes, so.
We meet with the city of Cottage Grove actually tomorrow, and I can share the plan and ask Mayor Bailey if there's folks in the city planning department that would like to be part.
Like St. Paul Park and Newport, if they all kind of saw it sooner, maybe that would be helpful.
And the question I have is, I turned it off. All right, so when we get into the feedback stage of the surveys, my question is around that survey. Are we looking at bringing Peter Letterman in and doing a scientific survey? Or are we looking at just doing these generic, we're going to throw it out on the website kind of a survey?
Ron, we haven't talked in depth about what that feedback would look like. I think it depends. And I think the branches off to the side are just as needed if needed. It doesn't necessarily signify that we will definitely have a survey at that point. If we feel like we've gathered enough information from the task force and through community meetings and a survey isn't necessary, then we certainly wouldn't conduct a survey.
Well, I'm a believer that I think we should, because I've gotten a lot of value out of that survey, because it's an opportunity for us to do a scientific survey and ask some generic questions too on how the board's doing, how the district is doing, and then we always have that because by then the plan, you've come to us with a review. Yeah, we haven't adopted the plan, but those options are going to be there, and they can be surveyed to find out, are people willing to spend X amount of dollars? We've done that, and that's been very valuable as a factoid for at least me to be able to make a decision when it does come to adoption time. So I would support a formal survey. The ones that we do on the website are great, but again, they're not scientific. I want something that's more scientific, that we're reaching everyone within the district.
Julie, I promise it's not because I dozed off in your presentation, which was very informative. Can you remind me where we're getting?
Emotional learning.
Yeah, I know. Well, so I'm owning it. I'm owning it.
That wasn't even.
Yeah, it's 8:15. How are we getting feedback from staff? So not just administrative level staff, but from our other staff about program needs, because certainly, and space needs, because that came up in some of the listening sessions. So I just want to.
If you could, what staff are you talking about specifically? Any groups?
Building staff. So, and bus drivers. So not necessarily just like principals or people at the district office, but also.
When we do our needs assessment, it will be comprehensive. So it will be our building principals. And of course, hopefully they have the best handle on the space there. We'll be talking with community education, kids club programming, early childhood, special education. If we've been internal, we're not starting with a blank slate. We know what many of those needs are. We will connect up with transportation, all of nutrition services, and nutrition services from the perspective of if there are any needs within the schools, if there are any other needs in terms of kitchen, et cetera. But we will make sure we cover the full gamut of stakeholders in terms of assessing our needs.
Thank you. Anyone else? Thank you.
So I look forward to being Dan. Dan's going to share the guiding change document in April. Thanks.
8.3, negotiations update, and I believe Heather's going to give us an update this evening on our first meeting.
That is me. So I think last time Michelle gave the update, and it was right before our first negotiations meeting. So the negotiation teams from United Teachers of South Washington County Schools and our District 833 staff met for the first time on February 27th. And we really, their first negotiations meeting, which is my first one also as a board member, so it was exciting. We focused really on just introducing ourselves to each other. We talked a little bit about and started a discussion on ground rules and parameters, and I think the most exciting part was we set our future meeting dates. So we have 6 dates scheduled, and I know someone will post these for me, so I will read them though. But so we talked about March 19th, April 4th, April 24th, May 13th, May 28th, and June 5th. For those of you who pay attention to the legislative cycle, we intentionally scheduled some for when the legislature should be finished on purpose, and we scheduled some throughout, basically leading up to the last day of school for most of the kids in the district, so that we hopefully can have 6 and get them done. Our district team, I think Michelle talked about it last time, but just to reiterate, is Kevin Rupp, who is one of the attorneys, Human Resources Director Kevin Witherspoon, Assistant Superintendent Christine Schaefer, Finance Director Dan Pyan, myself, Sharon, and Katie as school board members. And then the teachers union is represented by 6 teachers and an Ed Minnesota rep. And hopefully I will get all of their names correctly. So David Donnelly, Marty Fridgen, Nick Yahisik, dang it. Okay, so Nick, I apologize. Christy Johnson, Lisa Lanik, Diane Schultz, and Tony Vega from Ed, Minnesota. So it was a very short meeting, but I do think it was very productive, and I look forward to either myself, Sharon, or Katie providing updates as we go through at all of our future board meetings.
Thank you very much. 9.0, discussion items. 9.1 is our board listening sessions, and Superintendent Jacobus will start us off.
Just to set the stage, thank you. The listening sessions that you spoke about at the board, the goal was to increase the communication with the building staff, predominantly teachers, particularly as we move into, we'll have the facilities plan. We have so many things that are happening, and sometimes that the ability to have those conversations, it's not as easy. So we have had a number of sessions this year, and also with that type of listening to surface what are on the minds of our folks, we also have our Spark initiative, which if you remember, the Spark was soliciting for all employee groups, what concerns do you have or problems that you're facing that you want to bring forward and potential solutions. We went through the phase of collecting the ideas and going through a voting phase, and we selected 3 of the most supported ideas from the staff throughout the system. And after spring break, they will be going through a design thinking phase then to look at how would we implement. So I think the listening sessions and the information that was gathered also flow into that quite nicely, and where we've gone to take steps this year to make sure that we have good information about what people are feeling and what are the concerns and what are the problems. So part of the discussion with you as a board was to have time during open session to just surface at a high level the reactions and things you were thinking about. And also that's very positive or one of the goals is to make sure that after a listening session it isn't just listened to and then the information is lost. It's been collected, you have reviewed it, and that's part of tonight. And so I turn it over to you to talk about the discussion.
All right. So obviously not all of us can make all of the listening sessions, so we did get notes that were taken during each of those sessions. And so this evening we're really trying to talk about, what are the main themes that we heard along the way. We're not trying to find solutions tonight. We're just trying to find some main topics that maybe we can explore further, get additional data, and then, work together to try to see if we, can't address some of them down the road. So, like I said, not a solution this evening, just trying to find some topics that we heard through our session. So does anyone want to start?
I don't want to just always, so, well, I'll keep going. Certainly the big one certainly the big one that's shown up and we've talked about before is mental health, but not just, sort of across the board. So we get a lot of special ed concerns, and not concerns, but just always, but people have been great about sharing, challenges as well as things that are working well. But I think, for one, the thing that struck me most is just how different every school is. So there's that notion of saying, as a district, we should be doing this like curriculum or this body of something, and then you realize that all the schools have a different culture, they have a different student base, they have a different staff, and so I think just sort of pointing out that's a challenge. I think in both hearing information that just because we hear some things in one school and then the next school will be different, so you realize it's difficult to get kind of a common understanding. So that kind of shapes it. But then out of that, I felt that this notion of, number one, the growing anxiety among students, and then the classroom behavior. So the challenge of saying, what's happening in our classrooms, and when we talk to a lot of the teachers who've been around a long time, to say it's just getting more difficult. We have more kids with more needs. How do we manage that? And so they were good, honest questions that, again, don't necessarily all have easy answers. But I think that's what really has struck me about the opportunity, is that a lot of it might be that opportunity to sit down together. And we've talked about this even within negotiations about the labor management working group, or the notion of just, okay, we've got teachers on the ground who are dealing with this issue, and I'm looking at you, Michelle Berries, but just thinking, like in special ed, you get this feeling of, if we could just put everybody in a room, that feeling, kind of like we do with design thinking, for sure, but that there are some issues that we might be able to be able to solve in a way that we haven't thought of before. So I think that opportunity of listening. And then the other part of that is the data, because I think that was the other core piece of this, is really defining what the problem is. So I don't know, we say what people feel is we're really crowded, we're overcrowded, we have a lot of things coming at us, kids are stressed, kids have mental health problems. So trying to dig into what's the real issue here. So like class size, when we sort of had some smaller groups and are able to kind of push at it, it really wasn't, like sometimes it wasn't the class size as much as the fact that they felt that they had, like if they have one child in the class that they can't manage, it makes the whole class feel bigger, but it isn't. So I think that's the point of trying to get good data on some of these problems, so to define what is the problem. So is it that we have all the, is class size huge, and there may be some classes, how many, or is it digging deeper, the fact that people are stressed out because there are behavioral problems in their classrooms they can't manage. So I think kind of the three things I would say based out of all my rambling here. One is the need for more drill down and data on what's the real problem in some of the things we're hearing and seeing. And then number two, how can we work together as staff, administration, and with board support to be able to solve some of those problems, I think. And then three, be able to really continue and put in place a continuous process of quality improvement. Because to me, this is just what people do all the time in industry and business is, hey, how do we get better? How do we grow? How do we change? And I think it's exciting to think we could have that process like Spark, which to me, Spark really did, got good feedback, we had a good thing, but it's never ends, right? So what we're doing right now, listening and understanding, is not something that's going to end. So I also hope it becomes something we regularly are doing. What are we hearing? What are we doing? And we'll learn also each other more, because it's been great for, I think, us as a school board to be able to talk to teachers about the challenges we face too and trying to make big decisions. I think that's been really great because we all are on the same plane of what we want to accomplish. We all want what's best for kids. How do we get there? How can we get our conversation focused on how do we get there versus whether or not we care or don't care, or, you know, how we, those kinds of things. So that's my takeaway of kind of the big picture.
Okay, and so I was able to attend, I didn't get to any of the high school ones, but so I hit mostly elementary and middle school. And as Michelle said, each school had their own, I guess, quirks that were their own things that we didn't hear from other schools. We'd hear it from those specific schools based on, you know, their space or their needs or those types of things, like an older elementary versus a newer elementary and those types of things. And then, like Michelle said, the overall that I heard in every single one was the mental health or behavioral health issues. The rest of them, like I said, were more specific to maybe middle school levels, you know, talking about middle school schedule and, you know, how it works. Or elementaries was, I'm trying to think of any, like, a lot of those were more of the special education, like how they, kids per classroom and things like that. And so I think a lot of it, like Michelle said, does boil down to kids are different. I mean, the things that we deal with now are things that maybe weren't issues before. And the mental health was a huge one that we heard. And even some teachers were talking about different things, but it was still would tie back to that. And so I think for me, when I look back at it, that's the one thing that I just sticks out. There really wasn't another big overall issue, I guess, that I heard multiple times.
And that is a spark, one of the spark ideas too, the mental health, which is good.
So one of the things that I found particularly helpful, I made it to a few. I think I made it to one high school, one middle school, and mostly elementary schools. But what I have found is that a lot of staff would reach out after the listening sessions, and I found that particularly valuable. It is obviously challenging in the 45 minutes or hour that we have after school or right before their day begins to sort of hear from everyone. And so I'm really appreciative of the staff who reached out, who weren't able to share during those meetings, and want to encourage staff to continue reaching out to the board if they have concerns or questions or ideas to make sure that we hear them. And I know we're not talking about solutions, but all of us as board members sit on various committees in the district as we are in those conversations to be bringing these themes and bringing this information back into those other spaces, specifically like as we start talking about facilities planning or some of the other committees that we have coming up, or even if it's just the policy committee, that we're keeping this feedback and these comments from our teachers and our buildings at the front of our mind as we are in those other spaces and conversations, or when we're meeting with the cities, or we're meeting with the with other partners, that we have this with us and it's part of it. And I think Keith, we still have 7 or 8 more buildings to go before the end of the school year. So if we have not gotten to your building yet, we will.
Well, just 2 takeaways for me. One of them, I think, it's not so much for the comment for them, it's really about the timing of when we were doing them. Is there a better time to do them at? I know myself personally, I wasn't probably able to attend as many as some of my colleagues just because of my work schedule. So it's really hard, I think. I don't know if there's a better way. That would be one of my asks as we move forward. And then the other one, I thought, the ones I were able to, besides everything that my colleagues have mentioned, was really we have a role to do a better education. There were a lot of questions, and I saw a lot of faces when we started talking some finance and why we're in the situation we're in, because again, I think individual schools are isolated and they don't see the big picture because we don't talk to them about that. They work within their individual school. So how can we get that information out to them? As simple as, why is our fund balance in a situation like it is today? So that was one of the takeaways besides what you guys all brought up.
I just wanted to say that
I think it was on.
I was really, from all the teachers that we spoke with, I could see that we have a lot of teachers who are working very hard and doing their best job for our kids, and I really appreciate that. And I appreciate them coming to the meetings and taking their time, because I know how busy they are and how hard they work, and I appreciated that they took the time to come and talk with us. And I know that they did appreciate us being there, and we should definitely continue these meetings.
Thank you.
That's one thing I would say, because I'm fortunate to have been at all except one. But what's so exciting to hear is every staff talks about the uniqueness and what a great place this is. And you guys don't know what a wonderful place this is. And that's just so outstanding to hear, because of the dedication and the cultures that are in each one of the schools that are so positive, and everyone talked about supporting each other, and it's very impressive.
Yeah, I was going to sort of reiterate too what Heather said, is that if nothing else came from it, I think to the the ongoing education of us as board members about what life is like in our school buildings is in itself just a laudable goal, because it is helpful when you're when you're making decisions to know as much as you can. So I've certainly appreciated that, and not like there's a whole set of problems to solve or anything, but just any big organization, as we do, have things we can work on. So I get excited about making this, finding some way to build on this and create that sort of continuous quality improvement. I mean, that's one of our values, right, is to be able to look at ourselves and say, how can we get better? And a place that where the board can participate in that process a little bit more would be great.
So Michelle and I went to a lot of these together. So as she talks about this, it reminds me, at least 3 locations, I had teachers ask for board members to be in the buildings more. And so certainly I was very upfront with like my time and my demands, but I do think as we go into sort of our summer retreat, we should probably talk as a board about what our expectations are about being in the schools that we support, or that we're assigned to is not the word I'm not coming up with a better word right now, but the schools that are sort of in our purview, and how often we're there, and how we're connecting with them, and having a little more consistency, because I definitely heard very explicit asks to please come and sit in my classroom or be in our school for a day or for an hour and see what it is like. And I know that that's not realistic for every one of us to do in every building, but how can we try to be more responsive to those requests?
Sorry, Sharon, did you have? Okay. All right. Yeah, I mean, I had some of the similar themes, just mental health. Another one that was just changes and making those adjustments, especially the one thing, of course, was the new math. So I guess I think that was about it for me. So I guess just in a recap then, so the themes, and maybe this wasn't meant to be, so you can tell me if I didn't capture this correctly, but so I kind of saw 3. So the mental health, the growing anxiety behaviors that they're seeing in the classroom, curriculum, culture, and scheduling was one, and then changes. Like, so that's what I heard, but.
So change, meaning change management, how to help them not feel overwhelmed, or how we plan change. Yeah.
And training was also mentioned. Looking at a continuous improvement process, so continually, making this not just a one-time thing. Working together, obviously, to find a solution. We talked about the labor management working groups, and that we've also talked with the union about collecting data to find the problem, and of course, the ever-present budget. So we need to, see what we can do and what, maybe we would have to look at, prioritize, I guess, is what I would say. So
I think as we finish up the other schools, we'll be able to, Spark will then be concluding. We'll see where we are with that at the end of the school year as we move forward for next year. And then Spark will come back. That's a continuous piece that was not just a 1 year, and the listening sessions too. So I appreciate the discussion and having all of you share what you saw since you're at different meetings.
All right, 10.0 are the action items. 10.1 is the approval of policies 510.3 and 620. Assistant Principal Mike Johnson.
Good evening, Chair Brunnette, board members, and cabinet. This is the approval of policies 510.3 and 620. 2 weeks ago at our meeting on February 21st, Kelly Jansen had presented policy 620. I had presented 510.3. I will start off with 510.3 with our fee structure for athletics and activities. Last meeting, just to review, I took questions and we had some comments. First, I discussed the merging of 3 levels of pricing to 2. Secondly, we talked about, I shared about increasing the prices very slightly. We also added activities and athletics not previously included. Provided background and rationale with all those changes. But ultimately, with our coaches, advisors, and staff, we still provide a tremendous value and phenomenal educational experience for everyone involved. So very proud of the work that all those people do and what our students are able to achieve. So with 510.3, I'll take any questions or comments.
I think one thing you said the last time, and I think it's something as we go forward, was when we went through this process, you also did a little, some of these activities, like when we were adding summer and fall marching band, which, I'm like another super fan of marching band. But the fact is it costs us like almost $25,000 or $25,000 or something like that, I think, the $20,000 range to offer that. So the fees, I think for these additions, I don't know if people are going to need to see that, but I think that's real good transparency. I mean, this is just legitimate. It costs a lot of money to run these activities. I love them. I believe in them. And to me, the reason for having fees is to create a sustainable model so we can keep programs. And we have the scholarships in place for people who have issues. So I really think this is something we should review annually. I'd love to see us do that and really look at the cost benefit of this. Our fees are way under still what a lot of districts charge. I'm proud of that on one hand, and on the other hand, it's as we start to get tighter, we have to probably look at all of that. So thanks for the work you've done, Mike, on this, because you really dug deep, and that was really, really helpful.
No, thank you. I think the communication, we've had input from principals, obviously, the activities directors, Dan Pyan, Chris Blackburn, and others. So it's definitely a team approach. But no, I agree. We've already thought about some things that then for next year that we could maybe alter. But I think the communication to families and staff will be very helpful in this. But like we had stated when we had our board meeting on just 510.3, we discussed about a gradual increase. For example, the robotics and the marching band, summer and fall. 31st, then 60.
I'm going to echo a little bit of what Michelle said, and I know since we're phasing some of those fees in, that as a board, we look at the fee structure in the budget every other year or every third year at a minimum, just to make sure we're staying in line with the expenses and the cost of running some of these activities and the participation, and making sure that we can still offer a high-quality experience for those programs and balance those funds. So I don't know. I don't think that has to be part of the policy, but I just want us as a policy committee to keep that in mind.
Okay, thank you.
Did you want to go just one
Go.
at a time?
If that's okay to approve.
Okay. All right, so those in favor of approving policy 510.3, oops, I'm sorry, we need a motion first.
Second.
All right, moved by Pat, second by Heather. So sorry, any other questions or comments? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, 620.
For 620, Kelly had illustrated the last time about 5 or 6 elements in this, and obviously this is a new policy. There were some questions on this, but once again, there were 3 to 4 meetings with Kelly, myself, Christine Schaefer, and our middle and high school principals as well. So if there are any questions or comments with that, either I could take them or Kelly could take them.
Any questions on 620? All right, I'll entertain a motion to approve. So moved by Katie, second by Pat. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
10.2, approval of changes to the 1920 calendar. Superintendent Jacobus.
Thank you. We reviewed proposed changes for next year's calendar based on teacher feedback, and the feedback was about changing the work day at the beginning, work days with the assessment days to give them a chance to get in the classroom and get prepared. And then along from the calendar committee recommendation that we were looking at the year after, but we want to move forward with starting the kindergartners on the first day of school with the assessment days and the ability to have a transition before school starts. We feel comfortable that our little folks are ready to find the classroom with the rest of the students and get started right at the first day of school. So those are the 3 changes that came forward, 2 changes.
So I'll entertain a motion to approve the 1920 calendar. So moved by Katie and second by Sharon. Any questions on this one? All right, hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. 10.3 is the approval of our 2021 calendar.
Great. And that calendar mimics the changes that you just approved. The assessment day changes with the work day or the work time as people come into the new school year, and then the kindergarten start. But the major change with this one is this year in 2021 and then 21-22, Labor Day comes late. It's the second weekend in September. So this one we would request from the state a waiver because we fall under the ability to ask for a waiver due to the amount of construction we have each summer, and then start school then a week earlier on the 31st. One of the things that there are some bills in the legislature about these 2 years, and there actually is one being looked at right now to give flexibility with the Labor Day start, regardless of these 2 years, and who knows what will happen. So there may be some movement where we wouldn't have to ask for a waiver. We've had some concerns from parents that students that work at the state fair or 4-H, that would be viewed in just like any vacation that a parent took if kids were out of town for a week, as far as excusing and working through that. We don't impact our kids that with 4-H and the different aspects of the fair, but as I talked about last time, there's an educational value of trying to have the instructional time before the assessments and balancing the days and the trimesters, and that's why the committee feels strongly about starting a week early.
All right, so we'll entertain a motion to approve 2021 calendar. Moved by Sharon and second by Katie. Any questions, concerns, comments?
Can I ask one quick question?
Yep.
I'm just wondering, and just following up, remembering a couple questions that came on email, and Bob, I was just wondering for, I don't know, do you do Kids Club? Is that is Kids Club, that's comes from CE, right? Kids Club. Is there any opportunity to look at Kids Club options when we have these weird weeks and weird starts, for parents who, I don't know if we start Kids Club like on the last calendar, like if they don't have to start till the 5th, but we have the 3rd and 4th, and, I'm just kind of wondering how our Kids Club calendar might adapt, or if we've surveyed parents to see if they're going to need care when kids aren't all starting together.
So when you look at that, you're saying like if a certain grade level didn't start at the same time, or if it...
Right, I'm just, so I know one of the questions that came in from a parent was really on the last calendar, but this calendar too, where they start, so, Labor Day's the 2nd, and we have the 3rd and the 4th, and their kiddos don't start till the 5th or something, so when we're kind of, all of these sort of movements back and forth of different kids starting at different times, and I'm just wondering if there's opportunity to look at need.
Yeah, we can certainly look at it, and if there's parents who have ideas, we have a parent advisory committee for Kids Club in particular, but we typically have a few-day gap between the end of our summer programming and the first day of school programming to get the sites shifted.
Right.
But certainly, something we could look at and consider,
Yeah, it just would be maybe interesting. I don't know if parents have talked about that before, but it was just a couple parents that asked that question if we could look at that, so it'd be interesting to.
Yeah, we can certainly look at it.
But Bob, on the first day of school, Kids Club starts? When it's
what Michelle's referring to is if there was a grade level that didn't have school, for instance.
Yeah, I think they're saying a lot of things aren't available. I don't know, I'm trying to kind of follow.
We always have a few-day gap between when our summer programming ends and our school year programming starts, because we have to transition our summer sites back to school year sites because we don't hold it all summer. So if school's in session, Kids Club is in session. Okay. I think what you're asking is if there was a day or two, like if school were to start for, I don't remember what it was a K-5 the day after.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, so what you're saying is Kids Club is available whenever some kids are in school. It's going to be available for all kids.
Correct.
After school.
Before and after school,
Yeah.
yes.
Right.
What we wouldn't have is that full-day programming that they might be looking for that they have during the summer.
That's what I'm
If
saying.
just one, like if
Thank you.
kindergartners were to
I'm
start.
gonna get there.
Yep,
Yes,
if
it's not
kindergartners
full
started
day.
2 days later,
That's what
on
I'm
Thursday instead of Tuesday,
You're
we're
reading
not
it.
able to offer that full-day care because a lot of our staff work, particularly our paraprofessionals, work a number of different types of shifts, and so they might be in a different school building for part of the day, so we're not able to accommodate if it's just one
During
grade
this-
level,
yeah.
but we do on the first day of school would start.
So before and after school are there, it's during the school day
that parents would.
that parents are wondering about, right? So like school's not starting, and now I have to, for my kid yet.
In
But I
both these
think
calendars now,
both of these
everybody's
calendars,
starting on
they're-
the same day, so we won't have that variation.
On the
So-
first one too, the 1920 calendar?
Yeah, we moved the kindergartners to start with the rest of the,
Okay, so,
yeah.
okay, all right. All right.
This made me think of something else, Bob, but so as we're adding in additional days for our elementary sites where they have work time but no kids, does Kids Club offer full-day programming on those days?
Yes. Any non-school day with the exception of President's Day or any days that are 12-month employee holidays because of buildings aren't available. But yes, those additional days would have full-day Kids Club care.
Got it. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. All right, anybody else? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. 11.0, reports and comments. 11.1, superintendent's report.
Thanks. This week, the Suburban Community Channel, or SCC TV, invited me to be a guest on their Inside Healthcare. It's a cable television show hosted and produced by Jodi. The show is broadcast on 12 local cable TV stations around the metro area, including twice daily on SWC TV, Channel 14 in Woodbury and Cottage Grove. Ms. Rotaka invited me to talk about our district mealtime challenge. If you are unfamiliar with the mealtime challenge, the original idea came from Tracy Brunnette in 2013. And the idea is to provide, how it evolved, is to provide a time where families are talking, eating together, having that family meal time. And one of the things that came from the development is to provide questions or prompts designed to stimulate conversations. So we provide a jar that kids will take home full of questions and prompts. And a family member would pick a prompt and answer the question, and then every family member would answer the same question. And throughout the meal then be passed around until each member has had a chance to take a prompt. and answer a question. And one example of a question is if you could travel in time, if you could time travel, where would you go and why? And we did this as a family, and it's really interesting on some of the questions because with a junior in high school, it's hard to get more than 4 words in a sentence. And it's interesting to hear his thinking when he went through some of the questions. And I think for parents, it's very, it's a chance for our kids to hear our thinking too about a variety of the issues that you'd like them to know or it never comes up in conversations. So after Tracy brought that forward, then we started working to find a way to implement the program and started as a pilot at Woodbury Elementary in 2014 and 15. And the original goal also was to prompt student achievement because there is some research that one of the most important factors in helping to improve student achievement is that eating together and having those conversations as a family. There's a lot of wisdom that's passed down, and so that was part of that. Woodbury Elementary started with just a simple chart asking people to keep track of the meals, and the program has expanded and is currently, we have 7 schools that have participated since its inception, and Armstrong Elementary and Royal Oaks Elementary are starting in a couple weeks to make that a school-wide program and opportunity for kids. We hope to expand to the rest of our elementary schools over the next 2 years. We're very fortunate that Allina Health has been a great partner, has given us charitable contributions to make the expansion of the program possible, so we can do the printing and put the jars together and all the posters that come with it. And Community Ed Gretchen Carlson is our point person that really helps us move that forward, and she does a wonderful job of talking about it and is a great champion. So. Next, I want to talk to you about the Final Four, but not the basketball Final Four. The Read to the Final Four program, which provides access to thousands of digital books and encourages students to read and explore their interests through the competitive spirit that March Madness begins each year. Many district elementary schools entered to participate in the Read to the Final Four last fall. Once the program began, students, they would track their reading progress on an app, and the app is called My Ons, but they would track the number of books and the time they were reading. And then 68 schools throughout Minnesota were picked to be part of the tournament. And we were fortunate to have Gray Cloud Elementary, Armstrong Elementary, Liberty Ridge Elementary, Woodbury Elementary, Royal Oaks, Bailey, Pullman, and Middleton to make the tournament. And now that it's been going on, out of the 68 schools that started, Liberty Ridge is in the Elite 8. So we're hoping they'll make the Final Four soon, and if you have your brackets up in your offices. No, well, I think it's reading time. Is that percentage of students? Yeah, that's good too, because it's throughout Minnesota. And winners will be announced during the Final Four week in April of this next month. This was a free program that's provided to kids, so it's really exciting, I think. And then tomorrow is our professional staff development day, and I asked Kelly if she'd just give you a quick rundown on what the day is going to look like. I know you heard a bit about the virtual learning that we'll do, and so Kelly, if you would just give us a summary.
Sure. In the morning is a lot of planned activities. Our pre-K teams are working with the teamwork framework. This is a follow-up from some fall professional development that they have done. Our K2 teams have submitted an individual plan based on their school's needs as it centers around what do they need with bridges and what do they need time to collaborate, time to work on workstations. Those type of plans have been submitted. Our 3-5 teachers are preparing for the implementation of bridges. They're getting to know bridges a little bit more, and they're going through some of the FAQs that we've already received about the implementation. So hopefully by that 10 or 10:30 when we all gather, we can bring more questions to the table and get folks the information they need so they feel like they have a vision of where we're heading. And so the specialists, our art, music, PE, are working with principals so that they can personalize their PD plans. Our reading specialists are participating in PD led by our district literacy specialists. And that is a lot going on with our morning in the elementaries. Our middle schools and high schools are doing the same thing, but they're doing it in a different venue. Middle school teachers are meeting by content. So all middle school math teachers are meeting at a school. All language arts are meeting at a school. So they'll be with their colleagues from other middle schools, and our high schools are staying within their schools. They will be participating in suicide prevention training in the morning, and then they will move on to hearing about Schoology and an expectation checklist so that they can gauge where they are with where we would like to be with Schoology in the future. And then they will have time to work with each other and collaborate on getting their classrooms and their Schoology classrooms, I should say, where they need to be. We also have some Naviance training, which is our career and college preparation program that our students and families have access to. And so that's happening at some of our secondary schools. And then the afternoon is school planned. And I know we have a lot of principals that are meeting with their staffs, and we have staffs that have a lot to do. So lots happening tomorrow.
Thank you. And finally, I'll just talk snow. We'll be getting updates on the National Weather Service about the storm coming in this weekend. I don't even read them. I'm so happy we're going into spring break because I heard a bit of snow coming next week, so that's good. But I wanted to explain last time when I mentioned about that we're 1 day short now at the secondary, and I said, here's an option. We could look at the 29th. Well, I spoke too soon because just taking that day at the end, there's some language in our contract that we have to work through, so we've been working with union leadership to find a solution. There are 2 bills currently at the state to allow boards of education to make a decision if they would forgive the time, so to speak. One bill said gives you flexibility to forgive 3 days or make a decision we wouldn't make up 3 days due to those 3 cold days. The other one gives you the discretion on just the winter weather closures. There's some other things in the bills that they'll work through on some requirements. But I do think it'll come to you, the ability as a board to make a decision, and we won't have to worry about trying to work through when we might make that time up. I want the public to understand the reason boards around the state would look at saying we're not going to require is it becomes really difficult to find a meaningful day. And if districts don't have any time before the assessments and that, to just put days on the end is not as educationally sound. It was an odd winter. We hope that we're not going to have a winter like this, but we said that in 2014, and here we are again. So we're looking at some other options with some flex things next year that could help us with the application to the state, avoid being in the same situation. But that's why we're where we are now. And the 2 bills also, the legislators know a lot of districts they've made plans, they've got to move forward, they've got to act on this quickly. So I believe there were some hearings on those bills today, and I think we'll hear something quickly.
Thank you. 11.2 are board reports. Pat, did you have a report?
Tomorrow I'm going to attend the City of Cottage Grove meeting at, oh yeah. Tomorrow I'll be attending the City of Cottage Grove meeting at Junction 70, and then next Tuesday I'm heading for Arizona. And when I come back, I'm going to the Final Four hockey tournament, and then I'm going to Philadelphia with the board.
Much to the disappointment of my daughter, we don't have spring break plans, so we'll be here. I feel like in the past few weeks or a few months, this building has become my second home. As I was looking at my calendar, I've been here a lot. I am excited, though. We had the negotiations meeting, and then I spent a day with Dan and Christine and Kevin at the MSB negotiations training, which was also exciting just to hang out with Dan and Kevin and Christine all day. I learned a lot about them as individuals, which was very fun. And their driving styles, and their, we got to have lunch, and I got to sit with them. It was they were very nice to me. And I will also say, I've had the opportunity to have really exciting conversations, kind of starting with the listening session that we had, which feels like forever ago as a board with the public, We have another one coming up, but then with Julie and some of the bullying prevention families at Cottage Grove Middle School, and with Trina around the achievement integration work and some of the changes to the budget, and with Mike and Michelle around the policy work that we're doing, and then with Keith and Christine about some of the discipline work that we may be starting as a district and having conversations about all of that. So it has been really exciting last couple months, and yeah, I hope you all enjoy your spring breaks.
I talked a lot tonight, so I'll pass.
Yeah, no report for me.
Just wanted to touch on one thing. I went with some of our advisory parents to the Capitol. I think it was last Wednesday. I don't know, whatever day. Traffic was really bad, and it took like an hour longer to get to St. Paul than it should take to get to St. Paul. It seems like I always plan to go somewhere when we have some sort of weather issues, but it's always a good time to go with the parents, because then I think they understand a little bit more that our legislators want to hear from the parents. They want the emails, and they reiterate, get groups together to send messages about what you would like to see. I think Susan Kent mentioned like at least four is when they really start to understand and see that this is not just coming from us as a board, it's coming from the parents. The parents want to see these things happen, and so I just want to say that any parents that are still listening, if you're still listening or are watching this later on, to reach out if you have concerns, questions. Reach out to our legislators. If you need to find out who they are or how to get a hold of them, contact us. We can get you their contact information, because we have to do these things in order to make it happen. If we want to see the 3 and 2, we need to let them know we want to see 3% and 2% increased. If we want to see them let us put a bathroom in a school when we add on to a school, instead of having to just have it for educational purposes, because a bathroom obviously does not need to be in a school, only a classroom does. We need to let them know that we want to see those things happen, and that, if we want to add 10 classrooms, we also need to have a place for these extra kids to eat. And all of these things we can't do under the current legislation. So let them know that, you want your kid to be able to eat at a normal time and not at 9 o'clock in the morning, because that's the only time we can fit them into the cafeteria. And that we don't want them waiting 30 minutes to go to the bathroom when we go on a field trip. These are just, things that they need to hear from more than just administration, school board. They need to hear it from the parents, because you are the ones that are there when your kids are seeing these things, or your kid says, I eat I eat lunch right after I get to school because I have to. So reach out, be involved, contact me if you want to know who they are, and I'll get you their cell phone numbers. Just kidding.
Oh, I have my own. Oh, okay. I attended the 9/16 gala with chairperson, chair lady, chairwoman, chair, Brunnette, which was a really nice event. I think as a board, we should maybe next year try to get a group of us to go. I also was the guest speaker for the Applaud Breakfast at Park High School. 10 students were honored for their academics, athletics, and the arts. They received a medal and a folder for their contributions. The teachers gave a little synopsis of what their achievements were. And it was organized by Lynn Diamond and Principal Garski. I'm going to Philadelphia. I don't have a spring break. One bit of news is that I was appointed by Governor Walz and Peggy Fleming to serve on the commission for the judicial selection for judges for the state of Minnesota. And I will serve a 4-year term for that. So I'll be kind of busy.
Like you aren't now. All right. Yeah, like I said, the 9/16 event was very cool. It always is a really great time, so that'd be awesome if we could have more representation there. And then just one fun thing, speaking of the Final Four high school slam dunk three-point contest or whatever it is going to be at Eastridge on Friday, April 5th. So I don't know how to get tickets, but we're a sponsor. My company is a sponsor, so I know it's there, and I'll try to get some tickets because it seems like it would be fun. So anyway, so that's kind of cool. 12.0 future meeting dates. March 28th, of course, is a little bit critical, so we have a quorum with 4. If someone can't make it, please let us know as soon as you can. And then our next meeting after that would be April 11th. And with that, we are adjourned.